Hey, what's going on, group leaders? Welcome back to the Group Leader Podcast. So excited to be back here. We got Glenn Underhill. Welcome back, Glenn.
Well, thank you for having me back.
Yeah, we're in some different clothes this time.
That's a good thing.
We finally decided to change. He put some deodorant on.
Yep.
I just put a hat on again.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like doing my hair this morning, but
Hat looks good, by the way.
thank you. You know, Disciple First. If anyone knows what Disciple First is, well,
Sporting the gear.
sporting the gear. I got the polo.
Yeah, the hat and the shirt.
Yeah, I may have another Disciple First undergarment. I'm just kidding. I'm sorry if that gave y'all any images out there. But anyways, what we're going to do is we're going to talk today a little bit about growing new leaders.
Yeah.
So we've kind of been going through, talk about healthy connect groups, how to grow your people, how to grow your group.
Right.
Now we're talking about growing new leaders.
Yeah.
But I figured before we jump in, I wanted to ask you a question, Glenn, because I
Oh,
thought
boy. Here we
you've
go.
probably got a good response to this. So if you could have any superpower in the world, what would it be and why?
Ooh, wow. So just right off the top of my head, I'm going right at the first thing comes to mind. I'd want to fly.
Fly.
Yes.
Okay.
And I think the reason is because, I don't know, I think it'd just be kind of cool, right?
Yeah.
Where you could just like get up and see some things. And I don't know, it just seems like it would just be the coolest thing. So when I'm sitting in an airplane, sometimes I'm thinking, what would it be like if you could be out on the wing or like, right? So
I can just imagine you getting out of the airplane and just flying along with it to go,
Yeah.
hey, look at me.
like, I saw the new Tom Cruise movie not long ago and I was thinking, wow, that would be kind of cool. Like when they did this whole like plane thing and I'm like, man, that would be kind of killer to have been on that stunt, but I don't know. So I think flying would be pretty stellar.
So I'm thinking right now like a scene from Spider-Man, like Peter Parker, Mary Jane.
Yeah.
Like you get to take Dawn on a fly. Like
Yeah.
y'all are just hanging on to each other and you're just kind of flying her across town. I mean, that'd be kind of a cool date.
Sweet, yeah. What about you? What would you be your superpower?
This is going to be kind of inappropriate, but I always thought X-ray vision would be really cool. Now, I know everyone's always like, oh, that'd be really awkward. I'd definitely turn it off to be appropriate.
Right.
But I think it'd be really neat at moments where you're like, oh, I just need to see like what's on the other side of the wall, or like, hey, I just want to check things out and kind of see what's going. Like, I think it'd just be really cool to see through things.
Yeah.
But maybe if you can't control that, then that
Or
may
like
be a weird power.
like
but
if you're Superman and you had that he had that X-ray kind of thing, he could like melt the wall down, right?
Right.
That'd be kind of cool too.
I don't know. I honestly, if I could have all the superpowers, that'd be great. If I could fly, if I could see through things. What's the other one? Super strength.
Superman or Batman?
Ooh, that's a good question. Oh, man. Why'd you put me on the spot, Glenn?
I probably shouldn't have done that. We get to what we're talking about, but we don't have to answer that.
I'll say Superman. We'll unpack this in another podcast.
We will.
But so let's talk about growing leaders.
Yeah.
So when we think about this idea of growing leaders, it's really important when it comes to group health, right? Overall, developing your leaders, raising them up. And, Jesus is really good at raising up leaders.
Yep.
I mean, he was doing that really for the majority of his earthly ministry as he was taking these guys under him. And so when we think about leadership, I mean, what are some of the things you see just even in Jesus' life and ministry and how he developed leaders that really sticks out to you? Like, what are some of those aspects that just come to mind? You're like, oh, man, how Jesus did that was really, really good.
I think one of the things that most people, when they think of Jesus, they don't think that he had what I would like to call a leadership development program, so to speak. And I really think the last several months, probably the last, 9 to 12 months of his journey was really spent on developing disciple-making leaders who would carry on the movement. And frankly, he was. I think he was doing a lot of on-the-job training, right? And you watch me, and then I'm watching you, and then I'm sending you out and giving you the opportunity to try it and have success. Or because it's interesting because every time you see him, like when he sends out the 12 or when he sends out the 72, there's a moment where they come back and they have a debrief. Right,
Yeah.
They're kind of debriefing what happened, and I think that was part of Jesus's training strategy for raising up movement leaders.
Yeah.
So I think as you look at his life, if Jesus was in the business of raising up movement leaders, I mean, we should be in the business of raising up new leaders as well.
Right.
So any solid organization mean, the thing we always run into, people are always asking, we need more leaders, or we need, or even
We just heard it this week.
Yep.
We need more leaders, and you're like, they're there. We need to develop them.
Yeah, we just have to we have to really work hard and intentionally at developing them for sure. So I don't know if that answered your question,
No,
but
I mean, I think it is interesting because on the back end, you're talking about Jesus' life and ministry. I mean, I didn't even know that. Like first when I got here to the church, I was like, oh, wow, I didn't really think about Jesus being very strategic. And the reason why I wanted to bring that up is because as group leaders, right, as they're watching this, sometimes they're like, well, like, I don't need to raise up leaders. Like, I'm worried about myself. And what we're saying is if you're going to be a leader that follows after the way of Jesus, part of his leadership development was raising up new leaders.
Right.
And so Jesus really spent a lot of his time focusing really on the heart of a leader, right? Because we talk about character and competencies and how Jesus was developing those. So when group leaders are looking at raising up new leaders, why do you think it's important to start with the heart first before we even get into skill development?
yeah, I because first and foremost, that's where Jesus always began, was with the heart, right? And that was a life, that was probably a continuation all the way through. It was always kind of recalling the heart back to a posture of humility, to sacrifice, and just really this self-denial, in a lot of ways. But I think that, I think when Jesus understood that leadership is so essentially critical, but if we're not careful and we're really not, as leaders, guarding our heart, we can get off course quickly, so I think that we can have a lot of pride, we can have self-doubt, any number of things that happen as leaders, and I think that that's why Jesus was really adamant on this idea that any kind of leader, that there really has to be a heart posture, that it comes from a motivation of loving God and loving others.
Yeah. Because it's really cool because when you watch the development of a leader, right, you're really trying to move them from some of the, like, I do this because it's a duty to now I'm doing this because, man, it's a delight.
Right.
And that starts in the heart.
Right.
I mean, if you just turn people over to skill development, I mean, they never develop that heart piece. So they're always leading out of a place of, well, it's what I got to do.
Well, and the motivation for it is often skewed. If the heart's not, if it's not coming from a right heart perspective, right?
Right.
So I think that for me, that first and foremost is it. And so I just think, again, motivation, why we do what we do. I think if we're not carefully caring for the heart, and this goes, as when we think about group leaders, as you're thinking about potential, getting a good gauge on someone's heart and where really are they, is important,
Right.
and then continuing to help them nurture that heart for the things of God, and that they really are truly leading out of a heart of a love for God and a love for others.
Yeah. And that's really good because I think a lot of times, as group leaders, you're always just kind of like, you're kind of moving from one thing to the next thing. We're trying to pull off group, but you also want to be looking for leaders.
Yep.
And looking at the heart of a leader and going, okay, does this person show faithfulness? Is this person available? Is this person someone that's teachable, right? Someone that we can pull in and go, okay, now they're beginning to lead. They got a heart for God. They got a heart for people. And so these are all things we want to look for, definitely when we're looking for leaders. Yeah. And what I love is that you watch people growing even as they're serving, right? That God really, in a way, is kind of growing people to service while they're serving and even from service.
Yeah. Well, I think you go back to Mark 3. I mean, Jesus spends we forget this, Jesus spends an entire night in prayer before he chooses the 12. But frankly, I think even before that, Jesus had spent a lot of time observing those 12 in other environments, right? And watching and, leaders, one of the things I would encourage you as you're thinking about growing your leadership base is who have you been watching? Who have you been observing? You said, hey, do they seem eager and hungry? Are they making themselves available? Those things are great great attributes to be looking for, but then what you're, that as you're kind of really moving them forward, we're really wanting to really lean into their heart posture being about, it comes out of a love.
Right.
I'm motivated by a love for God. I'm motivated out of a love for others. And quite frankly, and I, as you look at even the great commandment, even a proper love for self, right? So, I just, boy, I can't overestimate that heart piece.
Yeah, that's so good. I think even in my own life, like I'm having to learn about just that self leadership piece, right? Not just developing the skills, but also the heart. How are you taking care of yourself? And leaders hear from us, we want you to be healthy, right? We want you to be able to take time to really reflect and go, okay, what is God speaking to me? Right. Because if you're not able to lead out of that place, then it's going to be really hard to find other leaders and develop other leaders if you yourself are not working in that way.
Yep.
And so when we think about trying to move people into leadership, one of the ways that I always kind of talk about it is getting the bus moving, right? You can't sit still and expect to figure out how you're going to get things moving. You got to start moving the bus so the steering's a lot easier. I think about my old pickup truck. It has no power steering. Right. So if you're just sitting there trying to, it's hard. But when you get it moving, then you can kind of steer it and begin to figure, okay, what am I really gifted at?
Right.
And so, Glenn, maybe give an example that you've seen when you were trying to bring someone into leadership, and maybe they were kind of stuck, and man, they were just kind of sitting there turning, and you're like, hey, let's get moving. What did that look like?
Yeah. So when I think about, hey, how has this worked itself out? So when I was here, kind of in the role that you're in, right? I remember trying to develop a leader of leaders, what we called coaches, which we have right now, right? And so just thinking through some guys that could help me serve our group leaders really, really well, because it was getting beyond my span of care. And so, some of the guys that I had been discipling that had gone on some trips with me, I had watched them, I had observed them, and so then I just started asking them to come along with me to lunches, or, hey, I'm going to meet with this leader. Why don't you come along with me and watch? Let's have lunch with this leader together. It was a lot of them watching me, and then me watching them interact with leaders. It was also giving them, just small but very specific next steps, and then watching them do those next steps, or seeing if they would even complete those next steps.
Yeah.
And sometimes it was going to cost them a little bit, and not in terms of money wise, but it was going to cost them something. They were going to have to reorder some of the priorities of what they were already doing, and ask them if they'd be willing to do that. And again, just that clarity of saying, hey, if they keep moving through this process and keep taking these steps, they're on a pathway to becoming, the kind of leader that we would hope for them to be.
Yeah.
Having them read some books. Hey, why don't you read this book with me? Or, hey, let's read this book together, and let's get a couple of these other guys I'm working on, and then they're starting to have some synergy and all of that. So, just trying to, and then having the forethought in my mind of saying, hey, what are the skills that I need to begin to, as working on the heart piece, but then what are the skills that I think would be some of the wins, the skill wins that they really need to do what I hope and envision that they will want to do, and then starting to try to help them shape that and have opportunity to grow in that.
Right. Yeah, it's almost you're describing a little bit about, I was reading a book recently, and the guy was talking about how he coaches leaders. And he said what he would do is he would become their friend. And then he would just kind of say, hey, let's hang out, let's do some stuff. And then he said at some point he was just like, all right, hey, I need your help. Why don't you come to this group with me? Kind of look at what's going on in the group. Give me your feedback. And at some point, he was like, hey, I can't make it to this group. Can you go into the group and give some get some feedback and then bring it back to me?
Yep.
And he said, it was a sneaky way of onboarding people. Yep. And so just as you're thinking about bringing people into your group leaders, think about how you can invite them into your life, right? How can you friend them and then go, okay, now how do we do life together? And then I start doing skill and character development.
I used to tell group leaders all the time, one of the best ways to start looking for a guy that might be a good group leader is get someone to easily just do the announcements or do the front piece, some of the icebreaker, or get to know you kind of things on the front end that are super easy, don't require a whole lot of time, but just watch and see. And how do they come? Do they come prepared? Do they come? Oh, they've already got it. Or did they come? Oh, that's right, I forgot, right? And then sometimes that happens. I get that. Yeah. But again, those were just little things that we would do, and they didn't seem much to them, but they were a whole lot. There was a lot of intentionality. And then if they would do that for a period of time, then I'd give them a little bit more, and then we'd ask them to take on a little bit more. And, I was always trying to think, I kind of consider it like chess. I was always trying to think 3 or 4 moves ahead to help them maybe take that next step along the chessboard.
Yeah. Yeah, you're always just thinking about, okay, what exactly, and it's kind of basically you're saying, okay, how do I align with what God's doing in this person's life?
Right.
And how can I help continue to direct that person, move that person towards their intended purpose, right, where God really wants them to be. Yep. But that takes great intentionality. It takes time.
It does. And I want to just say to you leaders, I know you guys you've got other jobs. I mean, I think about this all the time because it's part of what I do as a part of this. But, I recognize that this doesn't happen in a microwave.
Yeah.
Leaders are not made in microwaves. It takes, like a crock pot, it takes some time. So, be patient, keep working. But I'd start praying, Lord, who are some of those potential leaders that are in my group? Help me to see them as you see them. Help me get an idea of just how we can help spread a mentality of not, hey, we're all here to be renters or consumers, but who are the ones who want to be contributors, and then invite them into small pieces, let them, have some fun doing those things, and then you can give them more as you're continuing to move along the group dynamic process.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that because you're just giving a little bit at a time, saying, hey, come check this out. I mean, even some of the things we talked about too is like the importance of doing like group service projects.
Yep.
Like it's okay, leaders, if you do have a group service project and you only have 3 people show up.
Right.
Go with those 3 people because what you're realizing is those people are committed, they're faithful, they're showing up. So roll with those people and then see in those 3 people, who's the potential leader?
Yep.
And then begin to pull that person out and spend time with them. Yep. And I love service projects because it tells me who's going to show up, who's going to put in the work. And so it could be anything from doing the announcements to, hey, we're going to go serve together outside.
Yeah. And it gives you a little bit of a taste of, do they have a heart for others? Or are they starting to grow a heart for others? Because leadership requires having a heart for others, of putting others above myself.
Right. So I love that. You got real practical. You're saying things like, hey, spend time praying, begin to hang out with some folks, right, that you're thinking are potential leaders, start putting them in places of leadership, not giving a title, but just giving them some responsibility.
I would even, I remember telling our group leaders, hey, some of the best ways to try this is just, if you see somebody you think has potential, ask them to share their story one week. A couple weeks later, say, hey, would you be willing to do this? Would you be willing to do, a specific task that requires them to come prepared, see how they do, kind of, you can brief on it, have some debrief on it, and then give them, if they did well, give them something else and give them a little bit more. And over time, you're giving them a lane to play, a lane to have some fun in, but then you're going to start going, hey, this person is incredibly dependable. I see their heart. I know where they are at, and so I want to keep giving them a little bit more and more and more.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's even a great way to raise up new teachers. That's a great way to having someone who you're thinking about who might be a teacher, who might be someone you think, hey, they might want to, tap them to teach. It's, hey, have them share their story in front of the group. Have them, have them read the scriptures in front of the group. Have them pray in front. I mean, things along that line that just are helping you watch and observe.
Yeah.
Do they have influence in the group, right? When they speak, do people stop and listen, or do they just kind of blow by it?
Yeah. And what you're saying is this is not one of those moments where you go, oh, this guy's a potential person. I'm out on vacation this weekend. You're up next.
Yeah.
Right. That's not really a good way to develop a leader.
But sometimes it is that way.
Yeah. Sometimes it is trial by fire.
It is trial by fire. I mean, I'm sure some of the guys that have been raising up along the way, they would say, "Oh, no, Glenn, there's been times when you've been trial by fire." Now, I've tried to do that a little bit further down the line, but sometimes it doesn't always happen that way. So.
And what's good is that at the front end, it's a lot easier to have corrective conversations than having on the back end. And I don't know how many times, and maybe you're a group leader watching, and we've had conversations, but you get a teacher in there, they've been teaching for a while, feedback comes back, man, he's not doing it according to the playbook. Right. And then you're coming back and you're having to go, hey man, we haven't been giving you feedback. That hurts.
It does.
And I can tell you, as someone, and you've talked to many people like that, they just want someone to come talk to them early
in
and
the
give
process.
them some feedback early in that process. Because once it gets later, then it's just assumption that, oh, I'm doing exactly what I should be doing.
Yeah, that's good.
So when you think about just a practical takeaway, what is one thing that a leader can start doing today to start raising up new leaders? What would it be?
Have a vision for the potential leaders that already exist in your group. I think we just assume, well, there's nobody and nobody wants to step up. I don't agree with that. I just think that that's kind of a myth we buy into, right? Because think about your own journey. I mean, there was probably a time when you were like, oh, I don't know if I could do this, but along the way you stepped up and you did it. So I would just say, remember that there are leaders within your group. They just have to be developed. But again, remembering to see that redemptive potential in people.
Yeah. I love that. And I think also just remembering that spiritual leadership carries a different type of weight. Yeah. And I find that we have a lot of leaders, business leaders that sit in our groups that we may go, hey, they would make a really great leader in a connect group. And sometimes they feel that spiritual weight of it. And that's what's really hindering them from serving. And so just keep that in mind as you're thinking through catching a vision for leaders. Sometimes the biggest leader in corporate may be the most insecure when it comes to spiritual. Yeah. And just allowing room for that, allowing room for them to grow and become comfortable with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And can I add another
one?
No,
go
that?
For it.
Don't be afraid to make an ask.
Oh,
don't
that's
be
good.
afraid to make an ask.
Yeah.
Because what's the worst they can say? No, right? But you can always come back around and say, well, hey, I thought, but I make the personal ask. You do not, I think sometimes we forget how much it means to someone when we make a personal ask.
Yeah.
I see something in you. I see God at work in your life. And man, I think you'd be so amazing. And I, would love for you to be a part of our growing team. Would you consider doing this, or would you consider doing this? And then again, giving them easy, specific tasks but you have to make that specific ask.
That's good. Well, Glenn, thanks for giving us all your wisdom. And,
I don't know if it's that much of wisdom, but
dude, you got a lot of wisdom. Come on. And I think you're on for at least one more, maybe more in the future. But man, thanks seriously for hopping on. I know our group leaders enjoy getting to hear from you and just kind of hearing the conversation between us. We have these conversations all the time.
Yep.
And I think it's cool that the technology that we have gets to let them kind of peer into these conversations so they can catch the heart and catch the vision for what God's really doing here at Cross Creek. So, Glenn, thanks for hopping on, man.
Thanks for having me. And again, I'm going to hijack this, but
here he goes, hijacking.
I just want our Connect group leaders to know this. You matter to us. What you do every single week, really, it matters a whole lot because people's eternity, their where they are in the pathway, and helping people move forward and take next steps to reaching their full redemptive potential. You are in the game.
Yeah.
And that I cannot say thank you enough, because man, it matters, and we value you. If I could, I wish I had more time to just take all of you out, and I could say that over and over and over. But again, we love you, and we appreciate you, and thank you for what you do. It makes a huge difference.
Man, with that, thank you, Glenn.
You're welcome.
Thank you for appreciating them, and man, we appreciate you.
Well, thank you.
Well, until next time.
All right.